welcome to another edition of Never Alone, brought to us by Harbor Place, Port St. Lucie's premier senior living facility. And now, Jack Walter, Executive Director, joins us. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning. Thanks for having us on again. We have a wonderful guest this morning. Real excited to bring her on, Miss Esmeralda Lee. She is the Chief Operating Officer of Century Park Associates. They happen to be the management company and owner here of our Harbor Place at Port St. Lucie. We wanted to bring her on today to talk a little bit about kind of where senior living was pre-COVID and where we're going post-COVID, because, and I say post-COVID, at the end of what's going on, but things have changed tremendously in the senior living world. And I wanted to get not just what I see, but someone that is well-known in the industry, someone that goes to all of the conferences and things of that nature, and what she's seeing across the board with senior living. So welcome, Esmeralda.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you for having me on the show. I am really excited to be with you guys this morning.
So Esmeralda, can you tell us a little bit kind of about you, and first of all, and where you've come prior to Century Park and the things that you've done in your career?
So for several years, I was a nursing home administrator and then an executive director for several years as well. And then went to work with another company, Enlivened. It's also senior living, and I was a regional director of operations for them, as well as a vice president of operations, and then came back to Century Park to be the chief operating officer. So for the last 20 years, my experience has been in the operations role, but also as a caregiver before that, while I was going through grad school. So different roles, but mainly in senior living and in healthcare.
So you've seen lots of changes over the years, not just in the past 18 months or whatever we've been dealing with COVID, but what have you seen? Where was it in the past? I know that there was a horrible misconception of what assisted livings even was. And I like the fact that you have been a nursing home administrator, because you can really speak to the difference between the two.
Yeah, so what I love about senior living, assisted living, and independent living specifically is that the resident definitely can curtail or curate their own style of living, whereas skilled nursing is very much regulated, and we have to take into consideration regulations as well as things that are important to the business. When it comes to assisted living and independent living, the resident is always forefront. So definitely, we talk about residents' rights, but resident rights are only sometimes as good as it's on paper. But in assisted living or in independent living, the resident actually has a voice. The residents are very much involved in curating their plan of care, their services. It's very much a hospitality model. In the sense that they enjoy a lifestyle. So a lifestyle free of, doing their chores, cooking, cleaning, that sort of thing, cleaning the gutters, things like that. But they get help in the areas that they need it. And then for the most part, in areas that they don't need help, they still can go and do. We have many people throughout the country that still work and have jobs and live very full lives in a senior living community. And that's what I love about our business. And that is, we don't just communicate with family members, we communicate first with residents. They are our customers, and they still not just have a voice, but they are the loudest voice in our industry.
Right. And I think that's the most important part, is that they truly are the center of everything that involves. They are as independent as they want to be. And that's a huge difference from being in skilled nursing is, like you said, it's all about regulations and making sure things are that in. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but it is totally different. And that misconception there that assisted living is just a glorified skilled nursing is very bad. And it's not the greatest of outlooks that we want to have. So one of the things that we've seen, or I've seen, I haven't been in the industry as long as you have, but we are getting more, people are staying home longer. And I don't know if that is due to COVID. I don't know if that's due to penny pinchers, I guess is a good way to put it, because that is, I know my grandmother never left her home till she went to skilled nursing. So have you seen that? And do you think that that's going to change, or are people going to start moving in sooner? Kind of what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, changing a culture takes time. I think that, the culture has always been a home is more than just a home. It's a pinnacle to work towards. And the culture that we serve, they work towards owning a home. And so when you look at that, a home for them is an accomplishment. It's a really a thing that evokes pride. And so giving up their home is much more difficult than, just thinking about the four walls and a place to live. It is giving up something that was a moment of pride that they actually saved. They bought a home. And most of the clients that we know in senior living, they own their own home. Which, nowadays that culture of owning their own home is, slowly being eroded because people rent, people travel. You can watch HGTV, and tiny homes are on the rise. So people want less of a big home, but the culture that we serve, it's still very much a big home, having those items where was important to them and still is. I think the tough part is when you look at a home, you got to look at all the things that you got to do to upkeep a home. And especially right now, when the market is so rigorous, selling your home for seniors right now is a great time to sell your home, because you could sell your home far beyond its value and still have money for your retirement. And so I think that because of the housing market, a lot of seniors are looking to sell their home because the more they stay in it, the more they can't keep it up. It does decrease the value. I've been, several people's homes over the years. They love their home, but they have gotten used to sitting on the couch. They don't want to do anything, in terms of upkeep, or they're paying to get it done. So they can't really inspect the work that is being done by these contractors. And so their home starts to crack. There's basement issues, foundation concerns. And so their value does decrease. So, and also, as long as you live in a home, typically what we end up doing is gathering stuff and more stuff. And when you gather stuff, it really does make it more difficult to leave. But also, it's not a great way to showcase your home. So, I think that older adults right now should be looking at selling. Some of them have been. I've seen that trend, because if they can declutter, this would be the prime time in the market to sell.
Sure. I know the housing market here in Port St. Lucie has gone through the roof. There's new houses going up every day. Lots are going for $110,000 for just a lot, which 5 years ago would have been 6,000.
Right.
It's crazy. So now is the time for people to do that, to sell their homes, downsize, and for a lot, that's hard, like you said, because they're used to having families come over at Christmas, and they're used to doing family parties all the time. And that's one of the great things, especially about independent living, is you still have that ability. And so you have an apartment that's got a dining room in it and things of that nature. So you don't have to give all of that up. And I think that's important to showcase as well.
Right.
And I have seen a change recently, very recently. Residents coming in are more computer. They are very much, they have their iPads. For instance, yesterday we had Tai Chi going on in the multipurpose room, and I went to press play on the iPad, and one of my residents said, "I got this," and was right in there hitting on the iPad. And so what do you think? How do you see the different lifestyle programs changing over the next year? We're never going to give up bingo. We know that. Right. Everybody loves bingo. But how do you see that changing as newer age residents come in, and younger residents that are selling their homes and getting out of that and going into independent livings?
Well, I think COVID was what really caused that to actually become, really spiral. because I think before that, older adults were a little bit, I don't have to pick up the iPad. I don't really, have to look up things. My kids can do it for me, my grandkids. But when everything shut down and they could no longer see their family members or see those grandchildren or even be part of, great grandchildren being born, I think it forced the population we serve to become far more computer literate. Number one, they had to FaceTime their family members. So that was huge. A lot of them, they had to check in to do their temperature and their vitals, things like that. So, companies like ours, brought in AccuShield. So they had to become more tech savvy on, okay, I'm using a scanning device now to take my temperature. And then a lot of companies across the country have had, smart TVs, iPads, interactive applications or, apps to where people could order things online, could order their food for the dining room. Also, instead of doing communal social events, they had to rely on events through the iPhone or iPad. And now that travel stopped, so many of the elderly that love travel could go on virtual travel through other countries. So I think COVID kind of really was a pivot point for us as an industry, but also for the current for seniors. So right now they've had to transition. They've had 18 months. So yes, they're doing very well. And so as an industry, we're going to kind of continue to grow and continue to scale in that direction as our customers basically migrate that way. So they're getting used to it. They're used to it. They're going to want more of it. And so I could see, virtual bingo. I can see, very interactive applications. And then also what we deal with our employees, lots of our employees, especially the young crew, they're not very social. I think our residents, the downside to this is that our residents are going to give up on the social scene. They're going to give up on that interaction because just like they get comfortable with a TV dinner and a television show, they're going to get comfortable with an iPad or an iPhone and sitting in their recliner. So I think that there's going to be a downside to it as well. But yeah, our demographic is really moving in that direction with technology. Technology is huge across the senior living industry.
And like you said, I think it's going to continue, and that's going to be the struggle, is getting residents to be social. Some residents are hard enough because they weren't social prior to coming into being in an assisted living or independent living. And so, and that's, families think, oh, they're going to come in and they're just going to start playing cards or they're going to start playing bingo. Well, if they didn't do that before, it's very difficult to get them to do that now. And
Yes.
so residents that are coming in with iPads and things of that nature, it's going to become an even more of a struggle getting them to be involved.
Yes.
And so, like you said, I think that's, in our industry, we're going to have to veer away from the common things like bingo and horse racing and things of that nature and move to a different style of living to kind of combat, I guess is a good way to put it, the feeling of wanting to stay in their room and just play games on their iPad and watch TV.
Right. Yeah, I think we're going to have to really make sure that we disrupt the norm because, kind of like, I don't know, like my sons, when they got stuck with their Xbox, they could spend hours on their Xbox. I mean, I think we're going to see that with our customer as well. We're going to have to make sure that we create, a vibrant lifestyle choices for them to where, besides having an activity, we find ways to engage them in social interaction.
Yep. And I like one of the things you brought up during COVID is the armchair travels is kind of what we call it. And it's pretty common in the industry where they get to sit in their chair in a room, comfortable chair, and then we go to different places, Ireland or wherever, and they learn about those places. And it gets them to at least feel like they've been somewhere. They may not have ever left the building, which during COVID was a time period that residents didn't leave.
Right.
So we have seen an influx of new coming in, which is fantastic.
Yes.
And I do think because of COVID and people staying so long cooped up in their house without visitors. Now that people are able to go in, family members are seeing, hey, there's been a change. Or the residents are coming out and going, you know what, I'm not as strong as I thought I used to be.
Right.
And so they're making that change on their own. And so where do you see, do you see a continuous growth through the end of the year, first of next year, as we're coming hopefully out of this Delta variant? Do you see a growth with people moving into assisted livings and independent livings, or do you think we'll plateau for a little bit as an industry? Because I know for a while it did kind of plateau with COVID. Where do you see it going in the near future?
I think right after kind of, COVID's not gone away, but right after we, I would say this summer, we saw a huge uptick in people, like you mentioned. People were sitting a lot, they weren't agile, they weren't getting out. And so we've seen an influx of move-ins. But, as you can see, typically right now, we are seeing more consistent growth. So not huge numbers, but, considerable growth. And I think that's where we'll stay. I mean, we are dealing with a growing older population, but I think just having consistent growth in senior living is going to be key. So that, because I think we're starting to take also a much sicker, much more acute resident. So that's going to pose challenges on assisted livings throughout the industry, being prepared to take those types of residents. But and with that comes, changes of condition, level of care move outs, acuity that is beyond our capability as well. So we have to be prudent to that, because we can't take everyone in an assisted living setting or independent living setting. So I think that consistent growth will happen. And I think that's going to be prudent also because, I mean, as a country, we are going through, not just in senior living, but through, businesses throughout the United States are having staffing challenges. And so I think, consistent, predictable growth is good, because we have to be able to control the staffing component portion of the business as well. And I think that's where we will be. We are now reaching that gradual climb, and I think we'll stay there for a while.
And you brought up a good point, staffing. Everyone is struggling for staffing. I know with us, caregivers that have been with us for a long time, that maybe came in at a much lower rate than what we can currently offer, and we're making adjustments for that, which is fantastic that we can do that as a company. But we struggle to maintain those, because they can go down the street to another building and make $2 and $3 more than what they're making, because the rise of minimum wage, or just the fact that they're struggling to get staffing, so they're offering such a higher wage.
Right.
Do you foresee that changing? I know we talked some earlier on a different call that Chick-fil-A, I think it was, is offering $20 an hour for people to work at Chick-fil-A. That's hard to combat in no matter what setting you're in. So what do you see? How do you see that changing for assisted livings? Do you think it will go to more of a nursing model, because you're going to have to, if you're going to pay those higher wages, then we want to have people who have certifications and licensures that we can maintain? Where do you see that going?
I think there's two portions to answer that question, but I guess, senior living is not for everyone. It is for a specific individual. So if you are more comfortable going to work at Chick-fil-A, good for you. You found something that you love. But people that choose senior living choose to take care of people, and taking care of people and caring for them through these beautiful sunset years of their lives is really a calling. It's really not a job. And so, I hope that we can attract young people coming out of college, young people coming out of high school, people with GEDs. I hope that we can attract that type of person that has a calling upon their life to serve other people and make a difference, to where, in extrinsic things like, major wealth, etc., is not so much of an attraction as much as living a life in service to fellow man. And I think that's important. So, I think senior living is not for everyone. The fact that we're trying to get everyone ends up actually backfiring on us, because we get people that really don't care about how their actions impact the spirit or the soul of another individual. So, so I think we have got to figure out what we want in a caregiver or a healthcare worker, and really work on attracting that person with that kind of heart. But on the other end is, once we get that person, to be honest, what's happening now should have happened a while back, because I think a lot of companies stayed at that low rate for as long as they did, which is not good, because I mean, you and I have done caregiving. It's a lot more difficult to take care of an individual than run a drive-through. So the fact that we for so long have gotten away paying these rates is egregious. So at this point, I think the COVID, along with the state of our country, is really basically leveling the playing field. And to be honest with you, I'm happy about it. I mean, yes, it's going to impact our bottom line. Yes, we're going to have to change and do business a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, I think that we should pay people well. We should take care of them. We should take care of their families. And being a CNA, being a caregiver is backbreaking work. So at the end of the day, how are we going to take care of them? How are we going to take care of their families? And, we want them to have a retirement just as they are serving the people that actually have a retirement. So, I think it's going to be a gradual process, though, for companies, because we can't just ramp so quickly. So we're going to have to do this gradually, but I'm glad it's happening because it's way past time.
Yes, and you brought a very good point, that you have to have the heart for it. I can't tell you how many caregivers have come in and within a month have moved on to something else because it just wasn't for them. They thought, I've taken care of my grandmother. Well, taking care of your own loved one and taking care of someone else is totally different. And you have to have the heart to do it. One of the things that we have been looking for in the younger prospects is someone that wants to move on to be a nurse, that's and being a CNA that's in LPN school that wants to go to RN and keep moving on. We want to help grow them in that process. And in order to do that, we have to start when they're the CNA. It's usually by the time they're an LPN, if they're not right out of school, they've done it in different areas. They've been in hospitals, or they've been in long-term care, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. So the more that we can grow someone, not necessarily just to stay with us, but to grow someone as a person and to grow them as a caregiver and as someone that loves what they're doing is very important to us. I know with us at Port St. Lucie. And so that's been a little bit of a struggle for staffing, is finding the right person and not just putting a body there.
Right.
Because putting a body is not helping anyone, especially a resident.
Yep. And I do think that when people come to work for us, we should, whether they work as a caregiver, a housekeeper, a server, we need to know upfront what are their future plans. And then if they entrust us, if they entrust their lives in our hands to work in our communities, we spend more hours at work than we do with our own families, then we should really be obligated at that point to provide a growth plan for them. So asking them what they want to do, and if they want to be just if they want to be a caregiver, then they can start at the level of an entry-level caregiver, but put a growth plan even within caregiving. And then also, if they want to be a housekeeper, but later want to go to college and become an executive director, I think we need to work and help people do that, so that there is upward trajectory, even within, I love to see even caregivers becoming department managers in our communities. I've seen so many of those through the years that have become fantastic leaders. But I mean, we need to look at our replacements, and I think that's thinking that we're going to be around and we're going to be doing this for 20 years is the old model of thinking. We need to be, aggressive about finding our own bench strength and the next generation to follow, because we're going to need them. But back to the market again, I think that, and I hope that caregiving gets a lot more attention in terms of the compensation piece, because we all basically will depend on a caregiver. And I hope and pray that that compensation piece continues to increase so that we could pay fairly and well for the job that they do.
I agree. I think I know we as a company have really addressed that and will continue to address that. I've worked for other companies where, like you said, they just stayed at what it was. I worked there multiple years. We still brought people in at the same amount. And this has really pushed people to have to look at that and say, they do a lot of hard work. It's
right.
Not just standing in a window, passing something out of the a bag out the window, which, I'm glad people enjoy that. We need that. I'm not saying that that's bad, but what we do is very physical. And even in the dining room, it's very physical. It's not your normal waiting tables. You have to have those relationships with residents. Most of our servers know exactly what our residents are going to eat every day, not because they're just handing them something, just because they learn what they like.
Right.
And I think that's fantastic. I mean, I have people who have been at our building for 7, 8, 7, and some 17 years,
wow.
which is in being involved in senior living for however many years I have, that's unheard of.
Yes.
To have people stay in one place for more than 3 or 4 years, people move on. And it's great. It shows a testament to what Century Park is and what Harbor Place is, to have people that want to stay there that long.
Yeah, and you have such a beautiful building as well, but the culture of your building is pretty incredible, and being there, just experiencing it, it's truly an experience. I think that's what we also have to do as providers, is create a culture not only for our residents, but for our employees, so that they could, enjoy. I mean, I love, everyone loves getting paid, but working in an environment where you are celebrated and you have an ease about you, there's no fear that you're going to do something wrong, and I think working in that environment goes a long way. And having autonomy, I think giving our caregivers and our frontline staff autonomy to make decisions on behalf of the community. If someone misses something, to be able to replace that, and we can and them expensing it. I think we have to be able to give our team members autonomy at all levels of the company if we're going to be relevant for the future workforce and the current one.
Totally agree. Because they are the future. People we bring on now, but whether it be a resident, because we want them to be there for a long time period as well. So resident and staff wise, they are the future of what Harbor Place at Port St. Lucie is, because there's constant change and there will be change no matter what's going on. And so I think that's important to remember as well.
Yes.
So with all of this, kind of combining this in, where do you see the industry moving when it comes to, do you think people will start buying more properties? Will they start building again? Because I know for the past 18 months, everybody was kind of on standstill.
Right.
Nobody wanted to purchase any building. Nobody wanted to buy buildings. I know for us, we only operate and own our own buildings. We're not a management company. We just have our own. And that's something that as a client, you would need to think about. Is it a building that's managed by somebody else? Do they own their own building? Because that makes a difference in what's going on. Because when you're a management company, sometimes your hands are a little bit tied by the ownership. So where do you kind of see the industry going? Do you think it's going to continue to grow, or are people going to continue on this, let's level out and make sure our occupancy is where it needs to be before we truly make those steps again?
Well, I believe that there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of shaking up in the next 6 months. COVID, along with the staffing challenges, have really put a difficulty on the senior living industry at large. And a lot of players are struggling right now because we, obviously are responsible to banks and to lenders and other stakeholders in the business. And so I do believe that there's going to be a shakeup. I think that some players, especially those that have much smaller players, or even those that have ran at a huge loss and are unable to meet the demands of the labor shortages, will have to make changes in either selling or restructuring. So, I think the next 6 months is going to be very telling in the senior living industry as to who remains and who grows. And those that grow will take on some of those assets divested by other companies. And then once that kind of levels out, those strong players with more assets will end up either acquiring, building, etc. So I don't think building is going to go away. I do think it'll continue, maybe at a smaller scale. But I think there's going to be a lot of shaking up in the next 6 months to a year in the senior living industry, because some players have grown stronger, and some have larger pockets, and then some do not. And I mean, the reality is, we are paying people a lot more now, as we've talked about. But the assisted living industry, unlike skilled nursing, did not get a lot of reimbursement from the CARES Act during COVID. And then, so I think we're all going to be impacted from a financial standpoint. But those strong, agile players are going to emerge, and they will be the ones that will end up, surviving the next year.
So I do want to give you a chance to kind of brag a little bit. I know recently the Forbes 100 did come out, and Century Park Associates was on that list. So tell us a little bit about that and kind of what the Forbes 100 is, and so that our listeners can know about Century Park and what the great accomplishment of being on that list is.
So, I think for us, we had never been Great Place to Work certified. And then during COVID, we ended up doing our actual employee engagement survey in December of the height of it all, which was really an undertaking, but we did it. And, I think it went great. I guess the way our employees feel about us, whether you're going through COVID or whether you're not, the way they feel is the way they feel, and they voted with the way they feel about Century Park and the way they love our residents. And so we had a great participation score. But what really impressed me was our trust index. And as a company, we had a very high trust index. I think it was 94%. And that says a lot about how the employees feel about, number one, leadership throughout the company, the residents, and what they do, and the fact that they care about the company. Not just, it's more than just them. And so, part of that Great Place to Work accreditation or kind of certification that we got, with that came the ability to be able to participate in other awards. And Fortune magazine was one of those awards, and they had to take the responses of our employees, weighing with all the other evaluators that came through that survey. So, for the first time, we didn't just get certified as a great place to work, but we also got 21 in the number 21 in the large companies for aging services, which is a great coup for our associates, because they're the ones that make the magic happen. And it was great to see. And we're going to have another survey, in December of this year. And I'm excited. I'm excited that our employees' voices are being heard. I'm excited that they are speaking up. I just think that we grow from it by collaborating and having transparency with our associates and our residents.
I am so glad. I know that it's a tough task to get on that list. It's not something that's
Yes.
very easily done at all. So kudos to Century Park for that. And I know one of the things that's on everybody's mind, just speaking from residents that are coming in, they always ask, how is the vaccine rate? And this is a touchy subject, I know, but how is the vaccine rate for your residents, for your staff? So can you talk a little bit? I know there's a lot of things going around about what companies are doing this and what companies are doing that. Just kind of what Century Park is doing, because I know that there are listeners out there that want to know that. They want to know,
Sure.
how are you doing? What are you doing to keep your new residents safe and those that are coming in?
So we have a 96% vaccination rate for our residents throughout the company. So, most of our residents have become vaccinated unless there was a serious medical concern that their doctor advised them not to. So that's been great across the company. And then we started first with our leadership team. So from executive director, and the corporate team. And so we are 99% vaccination rate on those. And then right now we are at a 75% vaccination rate for our associates, but that will increase because December 1, we will be 100% vaccinated as associates. So, we definitely are advocating for the vaccine. And I can tell you from looking at the statistics within our company, we, even though the Delta variant was pretty contagious throughout our company, we still, even though we had, one or two episodes happen, we have not lost a resident or an associate. Our practices and our protocols have held strong. So we've had about 18 or so cases throughout the United States within our company, which is low, but still, seeing our residents get better right after having it, and then especially those that have been vaccinated, most of them having no symptoms. It's been wonderful compared to last year and what we experienced, and what we saw in the media. It was a tough time for all of us, but seeing the results now of the sacrifice made from those that actually got vaccinated is pretty amazing, because I believe everyone has the right to choose, okay? But it's something to be said about loving your fellow man, and really at the end of the day, being I guess citizenship is, giving your life, or I guess putting the life of another human above yours. And I think that's what I know people have their feelings about the vaccine, and we've heard it, in the media, etc. But for our company, we have to do the right thing by the population that we serve, and we serve a vulnerable population that can, and we've seen it, have died as a result of this virus. So being able to keep them safe and protected, and allowing them to live a little again. I mean, what sometimes employees don't realize is that they actually left and went home. They got to go to the grocery store and do things like that. But our residents were pretty much locked in their apartments, basically closed off from going anywhere.
Yeah.
So, it's easy sometimes for us as employees to have, say about different things. But our residents were the ones that experienced the real pangs of COVID-19. And I'm excited for them to live again, and excited for them to do the things that we all get to do every day.
Yeah, and I know that for us in particular at Port St. Lucie, when we had our one of our they do infectious control surveys through the county, we actually got praised by our protocols because we've been able to keep COVID out of our building. We've had 2 staff members this entire time. And that's it. And so, those protocols that Century Park did put in place have made a huge difference to keep our residents safe. And it was a struggle, not having to tell families they can't come in, they can't see their loved one. That was hard. That was really hard.
Yes.
But most of the time they understood why and the reasons behind the why. And so that has been fantastic. And I know we as a company have been kind of one of the last ones to mandate going to the vaccine because we did, like you said, we believe in choice. And we've come to the point now where unfortunately we had to make the decision for some, and that is that's not a bad thing. I think it comes back to what you said about the heart and having the heart to do what you're doing. I know myself, it didn't matter if I believed in the vaccine or not. It was more of I would not have been able to live with myself if I had brought COVID in and given it to a resident or another staff member who gave it to a resident. I don't know that I could have done that. So that was a no-brainer for me. But that's, like you said, I've been doing this. That's my heart. And so I think as things go on and we go into that, everybody vaccinated that's with us, it's going to be an eye opener and being able to do a lot more as times change.
Yes.
So,
And I think that people can, we talked earlier this morning, there's a big difference between having sympathy for our residents and then having empathy for our residents. And I think that the difference is, empathy is actually feeling and putting yourself in their place. And I think if we look at, through our lens, look at life that way for our fellow man, I mean, there's not one human that like you mentioned, that you would want to cause their demise or their death. And so I think that, it's up to us as caregivers to really have empathy for the people that we serve.
100%. So going back, I know we haven't really recapped, which we usually do about a half hour in. But for those that were just joining us, I'm Jack Waldrop. I am the executive director at Harbor Place at Port St. Lucie. And our guest today has been Esmeralda Lee. She's the chief operating officer of Century Park Associates. And we have been talking about kind of where our industry has come in the last 18 months since COVID and where we see it going in the near future. We do think that we're going to see a kind of a continued growth now that we're coming on I'm just going to say the backside of COVID. We don't know if we're going to go up a hill again, but
At least we hope not.
We hope not. We hope we're just on that steady downhill.
Yes.
I know Port St. Lucie, our St. Lucie County, our positivity rate has dropped tremendously in the past month, and that has to do with a lot more people being vaccinated. I know going into Walmart, whereas for a long time there, they have their little section where they're giving vaccines. It was completely empty. And now every time I go, there's people sitting there waiting on their vaccine. So I do think that more and more people are getting the vaccine and are understanding that it's not a cure. But it is helping keep people alive, and that's what's making a difference. So one of the things we always like to end with is give you a little bit of an idea of what's going on at Harbor Place in the near future. So coming up in October, we're going to have our trunk or treat. It's going to be open to the public, be outside. Our residents will have their we'll say, quote, trunk open for everybody to come by, bring your children. It will be in the evening. We want everybody to be able to come enjoy some fun times. We're going to have some live music, and that'll be a fun event. If you missed Super Bingo last week, we hate that you did. Elvis was a fantastic caller all the way back from Memphis. And so we are going to try to start doing Super Bingo once a quarter. So look at that closer to Christmas, where we'll have Super Bingo again. I don't know who our guest may be. It may be Tina Turner this time. You just never know who's going to call bingo. But it was great. In December, we have our Wreaths of Hope. We are going to do that again this year. Last year, we raised about $1,400 to go to Honor Flight of the Port St. Lucie. We are going to do that again. So if you want to donate a wreath to our Wreaths of Hope, just reach out to us at Harbor Place, and we'll be happy to give you that information. We are open for tours daily. All you have to do is either come in or give us a call, and we will give you a tour of the building and kind of give you an idea of what's going on. And as our commercial says, you are never alone at Harbor Place at Port St. Lucie. We are here to help you. Harbor Place may not be the place for you, but we are going to help you figure out what that place is. We want to be part of that process. We would love for it to be us, but sometimes your finances don't allow it, things of that nature. So we're going to point you in the right direction and try to get you the help that you need, because it's about you, not about putting people in our building that aren't going to stay there with us and make this their home. We want you to be happy wherever you go. And so that's part of the process of sales, is making sure that you're making the right decision for you. So we hope to see everybody soon at Harbor Place at Port St. Lucie. Esmeralda, we thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today. We'll try to have you on again sometime in the near future. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed it. It's always a great time when I'm talking to you, Jack.
I appreciate it, Esmeralda. So everybody, we hope to see you soon again. If you want to have a tour of Port St. Lucie, give us a call. We'll be happy to do that. Reach out to myself. You can reach out to Pat, my sales director. She would love for you to come in and take a tour. If she's not available, I am quite positive. I know for a fact that there is someone that is available. So just give us a call and we will give you a tour. So we will see you again next week on Never Alone.
Well, actually, Jack, it's been good to hear not only what is happening here in Port St. Lucie, but also the philosophy of the company. And thank you, Esmeralda Lee, for being with us. It's fascinating and important to hear that, of what the company values and what you're looking to put your emphasis on, and what you see as the challenges in the future. So thank you. I was actually, I think we have a couple more minutes. I was interested in a couple of points here. There are people who are still working, and if not working, they're going out to volunteer places. So it's not that you move in and you never leave, but talk about the people who are still active.
Oh, yes, we do. In several places have residents that are still working. Independent livings, we generally see residents that are coming in, it's becoming younger. We start at 55. So there's a lot of 55-year-olds that are still working. And so they just want to be able to have some place they can come home to that already is clean and that they don't have to worry about cooking meals. So they move into independent livings. We still have some 100-year-olds that live in our independent livings that are very independent. And I actually have one resident now that is getting ready to transition over to assisted living, but she's 101. And the only reason she's transitioning over is she needs a little bit more help at night. Other than that, she's still very independent. And so we do see those residents that are still working and going out. I have a resident that's part of a veterans program where he goes out and eats with veterans every single week. I think he's required to go like 3 times a week. So it's very much independency. We want everyone, no matter if they're in assisted living or not, to be independent.
Yeah, we have residents that actually work in our buildings as well. Yeah. And we love to see those residents because, number one, they have the best work ethic, and they are doing a fantastic job. One is a receptionist in one of our buildings, the other is a bookkeeper. And so we love to have our own residents working for us and living for us too.
The other point that kind of surprised me, we all lament that people have their faces buried in their phones, but you're starting to see that as seniors become more tech savvy. And interesting to hear you recognize that as something that you need to increase the socialization or the realization that people need to get beyond technology.
Very much so. And, and I will say we're not the only ones. I was at a continuing education class a few weeks ago and was at another community, and they even had touchscreen TV in their activity room, and the residents were doing it on the touchscreen. And it surprised me because it's so different from when I first got in the industry a little over about 12 years ago. And residents did not want to have anything to do with computers or even pressing play on the VCR. So it really has come a long way, and we are going to have to combat the playing on the iPad. And for instance, I'm learning how to play cribbage. It's very interesting. But my resident literally told me to download the app so that I could learn to play better. And I would never have heard that out of a resident 2 years ago, more or less 10 years ago when I got started. So it is changing.
But you still have, I know, been able to go back to what the large dining rooms and
Yes.
the
Yeah,
social.
our dining rooms are open.
Yeah.
They've been open for quite a while now. And now that our positivity rate in the county has dropped even more, we are going to open it back, our dining rooms back up to public. We had them closed to the public for a little bit. It was only residents only, but the positivity rate has made such a decline that we are going to open them back up. So hopefully after the first of the year, our bistro, if anybody knows anything about Harbor Place at Port St. Lucie, we used to have a fantastic bistro that people came in and ate lunch in. We hope to have that open right at the first of the year so that we can start offering that lunch option to outside guests as well. We will be having wonderful paninis and soups, just that grab and go quick cafe type lunch. And we're excited to get that started again.
Well, good. Well, thank you certainly for being with us, Jack Waldrop, the Executive Director of Harbor Place, and Esmeralda Lee, the COO, Chief Operating Officer of Century Park Associates, right?
Yes, you got it right.
So thank you for being with us on another edition of Never Alone. And we'll see
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next Wednesday at 11 o'clock.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.